Alright, let's talk about DC right now. Because the balance between powers and content has gotten kind of messy. Burst powers are running the show, combo powers can't even finish their animations, pet powers feel completely irrelevant, as supercharges have turned into the defining factor of damage. On top of that, new content just isn't challenging anymore. People are clearing elite raids day one with gear from the previous DLC. So in this video I want to break everything down, what's actually going on with each type of power, what could fix it, and how we can make content more engaging and replayable for everyone going forward. The point of this video is because I know more than likely they're probably already working on those power revamps they said they were going to do. So my hope and my prayers are that either this video or the ideas in this video make it to the forums and they listen and at least use some of them. So let's start with burst powers. These powers dominate right now because of how quickly adds die in current content. When enemies only last a few seconds, anything with instant burst damage is going to win every time. Gadgets though takes it a step further. A lot of newer to intermediate players like to say it has two loadouts. Technically it doesn't. It has access to another loadout through stealth, which you can use every 12 seconds. The problem is players that use the stealth bar to store multiple supercharges so they can rotate them far faster than intended. Since most supercharges have a 30-second or longer cooldown, Gadgets ends up cycling through different ones every 12 seconds, a massive advantage that no other power can match. Instead of nerfing Gadgets, the better approach would be to normalize cooldown interactions across all powers, either allow other powers a way to store an extra supercharge option through their own mechanic, or introduce a soft window system. And what I mean by that is, a soft window system is essentially a minor buff utility, just a minor little thing that you get for using your supercharge after a certain rotation, after a certain amount of moves. So for example, you go through 4 full rotations before you use Neo and it gives you increased stats or maybe increased rotation speed, or it throws an extra debuff on the target or something like that. So you get extra utility out of waiting to use it, but if you don't, it also doesn't do anything bad. You just get more out of using it strategically. This way, burst powers still shine in short fights, but don't completely blow everything else away in sustained content. The next category being combo powers, such as Celestial, Light, and Atomic. Combo powers are struggling right now, not because that they're weak, but because their pacing of the content works against them. These powers rely on completing full combo strings to deliver their full damage, but in most fights, enemies die halfway through the animation. You end up wasting a ton of time and output, and you're actually punished for being a combo power. The first fix is simple. Front load some of their combo damage. Let the early hits hit a bit harder so players still get something out of them even if the target dies early. You still get rewarded for completing the full combo, but it would make these powers feel way more responsive in normal content. Then for longer fights, add a momentum mechanic. Something like, after 60 consecutive combo hits, your power triggers a temporary buff that increases outgoing damage or slightly speeds up your combo animations for, let's say, 10 to 15 seconds. That way, combo powers gain rhythm and power the longer they keep their flow going. It rewards precision and skill, gives them an identity in boss fights or survival mode, and helps balance them against burst powers without nerfing anything else. It's all about identity. Burst powers win quick fights, combo powers dominate extended ones. Into the next category, that's going to be pet powers. Sorcery and Earth. They have a clear problem. Their pets just don't hit hard enough to justify using them. Unless you have an entire pet build and even then, that's overkill just for wanting to be one of these powers. The power return move, offering Fortify, that fuels pets only triggers 1 or 2 small attacks before the pet goes back to idle, and that's just not cutting it in in-game content. A great fix would be to have the move trigger 3 to 4 stronger attacks instead of 1 or 2 weak ones. That would make it feel like you're actually commanding your pet to unleash something powerful. Pet strength should also scale better with your CR or with your precision or might stat. So as your gear improves, your pet stays relevant instead of falling off every DLC. That alone would make Sorcerer and Earth feel alive again, especially for players that like that summon style gameplay. As a side note, onto the pet power category, even if you just wanted to do 3 powerful attacks instead of 4, do 3 and perhaps make the pet more utility useful, such as applying a debuff or something like that when they attack. The next category is going to be DOT and burst/hybrid powers, and 3 powers come to mind when I think of this: fire, mental, nature. And DOT powers are another set that struggle in the current meta because fights end so quickly they almost never get full value out of their ticks of damage. So for powers like nature, the fix is to shorten the ramp up time or allow DOTs to apply stacked damage instantly on first cast. You could also add a burst finisher move that detonates all active DOTs for instant payoff if enemies die early. That way these powers work in both fast and long fights. And I know they have Roar, but it would almost be like Roar activating for you if the ads die early instead of you having to actually run it on your loadout bar. And fire suffers too, but for different reasons. Its base damage is low and its supercharges just don't keep up. Reworking Volcanic Calamity or Fire Burst into a true heavy hitting supercharge could fix that instantly, as well as incorporating mechanics into it that make your DOTs tick faster, something to just ramp up the base damage. And Mental's in a similar spot, a hybrid of burst and DOT, but still underperforming. The fix there would be to make Pain Blast a cone AoE that can be used outside of stealth while still keeping stealth as a tactical option. That gives Mental the flexibility it needs without breaking its identity, as well as fixing Mental's stealth to work the same as Gadget's. Mental's stealth is way slower and more buggy. If we brought it up to current speed of Gadget's, that would help it a lot. You also can't clip nearly as many things in Mental stealth as you can in Gadget's stealth. So fixing that would also help it a lot. Into the next category, quantum and channel powers, and just weak powers in general. So quantum, munitions being a channel power, fire being a weak power, water being a weak power. So quantum used to rely on a stacking mechanic, but that's gone. Instead, it should focus on ramping damage, meaning the longer you maintain your attacks on a target, the more your damage gradually increases. It fits the theme perfectly and rewards consistency. Munitions isn't burst, it's channel based, and the problem is how easily channels get interrupted. It needs stronger interruption resistance and slightly higher base tick damage so it can keep up without being broken, as well as possibly a mechanic that spreads explosives if ads die early before the channel gets finished going off. Fire's channels should ramp faster, and water needs smoother transitions and higher damage over time to keep it competitive. These small tuning changes would make the channel powers feel consistent again instead of risky to play or punishing players for being a power that's just absolutely the weaker option when it comes to DPS. No one wants to be a weak DPS. Everyone wants to be strong. And at current in-game metas, every power should be able to be around the same, not necessarily the same, but they should have their strengths and weaknesses. And right now, there's just all strength and all weakness. There is no balance. When you play powers like fire, water, earth, it should feel like you're commanding forces of nature, not like you're slapping people in the neck with a pool noodle. Next, we're getting into supercharges, because supercharges are shaping the entire damage meta right now. Powers like Elec, Rage, and Gadgets pull way ahead because their supercharges either boost their base damage or they can be rotated faster than others. Instead of limiting supercharge usage, DC could add a diminishing return system. If you pop supercharges too close together, each one does slightly less damage until you rebuild some kind of resource bar or indicator. Alternatively, there's also the soft window mechanic. I know some games use this. Essentially, you get some kind of special mechanic added to your supercharge after you do it. Let's say for 4 rotations, we'll use that as the base. You do 4 rotations, and then you use your super, and it'll give you a small stat boost. It'll give you some utility, maybe faster animations for 5 seconds. It'll debuff things, things like that. You get extra use out of it, and you have to pick and choose when to use it to get the extra effects. Or, better yet, give every power a unique supercharge synergy passive. For example, Celestial supercharges could slightly buff precision or might. Quantums could increase tick speed. Natures could spread HOTs when you use a super, so on and so forth. Not only are they interacting with damage roll, but they're also helping the group. They're promoting synergy in the group. That would make every supercharge feel thematic and special while keeping balance in check. Now, let's talk about content, because honestly, that's where a lot of the balance issue starts. Elite raids are being beaten on day 1 with old gear. There is no challenge left. And when content isn't challenging, power balance becomes way more noticeable. The fix? Every DLC should launch with 2 elite raids. The first one, a mechanically heavy raid for players who want real coordination, teamwork, and high difficulty. The second, an endurance style raid where enemies have more health, fewer mechs, and are built for long sustained fights. Perfect for DPS comparisons, DPS comps, and group testing. You could even add weekly modifiers to keep things fresh. I know Destiny does this, various other games. Enemies having increased defense 1 week or reduced resistance another. That would make content feel new every time and cater to both competitive and casual players. Into the next category, that would be replayability and older content. DC has over a decade of content, but most of it's forgotten after each new DLC, and we need more reasons to go back. A few ideas. Add dynamic scaling, where older raids scale your stats and rewards to match modern gear levels. Rotate weekly spotlight episodes that give double marks and rare drops. Introduce legacy feats or prestige cosmetics that can only be earned in classic content. And maybe add power-specific challenges, bonus rewards for completing certain raids using specific powers or roles. That kind of system would make the entire game feel active again instead of just the latest few episodes. Or, I've noticed they're starting to make us buy the OP pieces, each DLC now. You could, instead of making us buy the catalyst, you could make them drop in older content. This week they're dropping in tier 4 raids and tier 4 alerts. Next week, in order to earn them, you have to do 10 alerts and 2 raids in tier 3 content. Things like that. Just give us a reason to go back to this older stuff. Especially if you're not going to make new and exciting raids. I'm not trying to downplay the work the current people do, but the last, I want to say 3 DLCs, making the alert and the raid the same thing, it's kind of like making everyone lose drive to play DC. And then I love the fact that they're bringing the Save the Universe stuff back every DLC. That's cool. But give us a little bit more. You're not having to make new content, it's already made for you in all those environments. All you have to do is go back and add modifiers. Guys, if you're still tuned in, I really appreciate it. The video's wrapping up now. At the end of the day, balance isn't just about raw numbers. It's about fun, fairness, and variety. Every power should feel rewarding to play, whether you're doing casual runs, elite raids, or competitive DPS testing. The whole objective is to keep you coming back for more. And content should push players to actually think, not just melt through everything with last DLC's gear because you can spam supers. These changes wouldn't just make the game more balanced, they'd make it feel alive again. So that's my breakdown of where DC stands right now and what could really bring it back to a better balance. Let me know what you think. What powers do you need the most help? You know, what kind of content would actually us as players want to see next? You know, things like that. Feel free to comment. I'm totally open to dialogue. I'm just, you know, I realize DC's on its last leg. So as someone who's been playing since like 2013, I'm trying to do my part, and I'm trying to help it before it completely dies or it loses most of its players and it doesn't have enough to sustain a server anymore. So these are my ideas. Feel free to share them, share the video, take the ideas to the forums, whatever you guys got to do. Even if you have better ideas, you know, let's talk about them, let's get them out there, let's try to do something, because like I said, the last 3 DLCs, it's kind of making people not want to play.